Okay, Roger, thank you so much again for sitting with me to talk to me about what's happening in Gaza. It's been almost a year now as we approach the October 7th anniversary. I'm just wondering, perhaps, as an opening question, we can begin by exploring how the last year has transformed you as either an activist, a musician, or more simply a person.
I wake up desperately disturbed every morning. And when I've got over that and had a cup of coffee, I think, okay, what can I do now, today, to help my brothers and sisters in Palestine and to engage in the fight that we're all engaged in, all of those of us who have hearts and minds all over the world, against the um, evil empire, the evil American empire, and but also the evil that lies in the hearts of some men and women in the world, sadly. Um, and I think it's concentrated my mind into saying, what is wrong with these people? Supremacy of all kinds is the key to understanding why people behave in these extremely evil ways, like the Israelis have done for the last 75 years, and are continuing to do so, with the support, obviously, of the American empire, including my country, the United Kingdom, which is part of the American empire. Um, and it's deeply depressing to me. But I fight off the depression like you do. I know you feel the same. So, and we all do, So, and the fight goes on.
When we first spoke in November, did you imagine it would get to this point that we're at right now?
No, I never imagined that the Bidens and Harrises and Trumps and politicians and Keir Starmers and Boris Johnsons and all of the rest of them could maintain their political and personal and emotional positions in the face of the fact that they represent pure evil. I never thought that, and then when The Hague happened and the ICJ made its ruling, which everybody had signed on to, So, and the South Africans did, and we all waited with bated breath until the hearings in The Hague.
I remember when you were in South America, there was also the reach of the lobby there, making, if you will, life difficult, if I can put it in those terms. I'm wondering, like, in retrospect, has that given you any sort of renewed insight into the actual reach of the lobby? The fact that it was trying to stop you in South America?
Well, yes, it has. That did. Nobody, the fact that there was no room at the inn for me, simply because I stood shoulder to shoulder with my brothers and sisters in Palestine against the Israeli lobby. So they closed the doors to the Four Seasons, among a number of other. I don't care about that. What is incredible, and that has happened since, is how lots of our brothers and sisters in the student movement all over the world, but particularly where I live in the United States, the students at Columbia University in New York, for instance, decided to protest the Genesis and protest the genocide. And they started to build encampments and to have protests and to wear keffiyehs and to use words like from the river to the sea. When they say the river to the sea, what they're saying is all the land between the Jordan River and the sea should be one united democratic state with absolutely equal human rights for all its citizens, irrespective of their ethnicity or religion.
Yes.
Or previous nationality. It's not rocket science. So, and this is all they're saying. and they're saying there's a genocide going on. That has now been ratified and established by the International Court of Justice in The Hague, in Holland. So we know who we are and where we're, and so we are going to occupy lawns and maybe even a hall somewhere in Colombia. They sent the Gestapo in to beat them up.
Yes.
Incredible. Now that when that happened, you thought, oh my goodness, here it is in front of our very eyes. How much of that system has been imposed by the Israeli lobby, by AIPAC and the ADL, and all those, in my view, misguided religious supremacists. Okay. I don't know. But you can see that it's endemic in the whole of the political system of the United States of America. And that is terrifying only because the United States of America is the most powerful hegemon at the moment.
Yes.
For how much longer, we have no idea. But and I have noticed as well that with the new academic year starting, that they have taken the summer recess to organize themselves and to start putting in place legislation and new rules for universities in order to stamp out this natural, wonderful attachment to the idea that universal human rights are a good thing. Because the American government, the country of the United States of America, as a state, does not believe in human rights or democracy or freedom of speech or any of those things. It believes in power and wealth. And that is now right in front of it. And yet, the whole of the mainstream media in the United States is still playing the silly game of pretending that the election that they're having, that they're in the middle of now, that will end on November the 5th, is a real thing, that is sensible in some way. It clearly isn't. So this is so interesting, Paul, because how can they not see this? How can the mass of the people can't see it because they're being lied to every single minute of every single day. And the lies don't become any worse, but the way they're delivered becomes worse. The more the Musks and Zuckerbergs and TikToks and whatever of the world spread. What is politics? It's individuals organizing together into groups in order to try and achieve an end. In your case and my case, the end we're trying to achieve is the application of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from December the 10th in Paris in 1948. It's as simple as that. If that happened, as you but know and I know, that would be the end of war. Forever, everywhere. So as I keep saying, this is not rocket science. It's really simple. What's important? Our love for our brothers and sisters, love and truth are the important things. What is not important? Wealth and power.
Yes. It's very interesting. Yes. It's very interesting what you were saying about the university and the pushback against the students, because historically, at least, the university was supposed to be a site of moral development when you think about how it teaches philosophy and the humanities. But it's essentially, with this pushback, it's conditioning students to, I feel they're doing this, they're conditioning students to be indifferent or do the wrong thing because they're being punished for doing the right thing.
That is true.
Yes.
We can look back to the Third Reich in this, though. Where was the book burning? In 1933. It was in the universities. They were university students who appeared in the streets and gathered together all the Jewish literature and anything left wing as well. They were against Judaism and Bolshevism. So any writing that they burned it. because that's where they go. Well, this is what they're trying to recreate now, in our system of here. So we've stopped looking upon the Third Reich as the evil thing. And now, back in the UK, where my roots are, there are people in government who are moved in their attempt to increase their wealth and their power. Keir Starmer's a perfect example. They will demonize Muslims, immigrants. That's enough. That's enough. Hang on a minute. Why does this ring a bell? Why does this remind me of December 1938 in Frankfurt, of Kristallnacht? Those riots in England a couple of weeks ago, that's Kristallnacht happening in what's called a liberal democracy, because it's not a liberal democracy. It's an autocracy ruled by a cabal of people who are lying, cheating. And if somebody does rise in a system like that, like Jeremy Corbyn did through the teens of this century, he's crushed. But not because they say, look, his policies, these ideas won't work. They got rid of Corbyn by saying he's an anti-Semite, and that's the worst thing you can ever say. Well, that's what they've tried to do to me, Paul.
Yes.
Roger Waters is an anti. No, I'm not. Never was, never will be. Not an anti-Semitic thought ever in my whole life. What I am is somebody who fights for human rights, and that is what they cannot allow. That is why they invaded Sarah Wilkinson's house, 12 of them, policemen in black balaclavas. So you can see, so now you've seen how I've changed a bit, maybe, over these last years.
I'm just so curious to know, I mean, it's a bit of an ethical question. Do you feel that musicians, especially at this point, should be using their platform to protest against the ongoing genocidal assault in Gaza? Or is that, I'm just trying to frame it as objectively as possible, or is that an imposition?
Yeah, of course they should. But obviously it's not just musicians. Everybody should. Anybody who has a heart and a soul. It's funny you should talk about my show, This Is Not a Drill, that you came to see, because we are just in the very last bit of the process of making a film of one of those shows.
Okay.
It was live in Prague, and it was in May in 2023. So it was right in the middle of the lobby trying to prevent me performing that show. They tried to cancel my shows all over Germany and in England. I had members of parliament standing up in parliament saying that I should not be allowed to perform.
Wow.
Now, which is interesting. Anyway, we've just about finished this thing. And here's something about it is, in the intermission, because the intermission is 20 minutes long, so we've made the intermission a minute and a half. But there's a message in the intermission. The last song in the first half is called Sheep, and it's about us, and it's about whether or not we resist this, whether we resist capitalism and fascism and war and whatever. And I've added the word in. This was not in the live show, but it's in there now because we put it in. Genocide. So, and that's the last word. Resist genocide is the last thing you see at the end of the first half. And then there's a caption, and it says, if we don't resist genocide, because I dedicate the whole film to all my brothers and sisters engaged in the existential battle for the survival of the human soul. That's how I see it. Okay. So in the middle is, if we don't resist genocide as hard as we can, I can't remember the exact words, but I say the Hammers will have won. Because the next song that's about to start is In the Flesh, and it's about the evil of fascism.
Yes.
And the hammers are a symbol of that. And so you hear this, you hear the crowd going, ha, and builds up to the beginning. So it says, it will all be over.
Yes.
I'm serious. We are engaged in an existential battle for the idea that a moral compass is useful for us to find our way as a species into a future that includes equal rights for all our brothers and sisters.
Yes.
I say, I've said it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. That is why I am vilified. That is why they're trying to destroy me. That is why interviews like this one I'm doing with you are rare. It's very rare that I get to speak to anyone.
I think what people are realizing is that what's happening in Gaza is foreshadowing something very frightening that goes beyond Gaza, but of course is still about Gaza, which is that if this is allowed to continue, like, it's going to set a precedent in the world that you know, might makes right, that power can do as it wants, and that the rest of us have to go along with. I mean, that's sort of the message I think that Israel's trying to get us to comply with, is that you are not allowed to, do what we're doing, but we can do it. You know, we can commit these evils in our name because, as you were saying, we have this idea of supremacy. It's almost like a violation of Kant's categorical imperative, just to be, not without being too pedantic, you know. It's like we're allowed to violate this idea that we are supposed to act in a way that we would want our conduct to be universalized as a rule, but nobody else, just because we are superior. I mean, that's kind of the direction I see this going in. And like you're saying, it's people of conscience who are going to stop this.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't believe in universal human rights, then say so. But don't pretend that you believe in freedom of speech or human rights or anything. And then act showing clearly you don't. Like, the United States of America does exactly that. It pretends it, and so does the State of Israel, and so does the United Kingdom and France and Germany and Holland and all the rest of them.
Just aesthetically, you are so involved in your work, you know, in the creative process. You're always making music, and then it really became apparent to me. I know you challenge your audiences from the outset. I remember at the concert saying pretty much, if you don't like my politics or something, you can. But I'm wondering, like, looking back from when you first started off in music versus now, like, do you feel, again, I know this ultimately doesn't matter to you because you challenge your audiences, but do you feel that musical audiences are, I'm not sure if the right word is receptive, but or more open to appreciating the gravity of the horrors that we're seeing in Gaza and showing solidarity with Palestine than when you first started out?
This is why the student protests in Colombia and many, many other universities, not just in the United States, I won't start naming names, but all over the world, are so important. They are the audience. They are the same people who might, on another day or another night. But you and I and all those brave students in Colombia are rallying round and renaming that hall Hind Hall, after the 5-year-old girl left in the car to die for hour after hour while the Israelis saw her down with tanks and then they killed her. And they killed the paramedics, who incredibly bravely, heroically fought their way through to try to save this tiny little girl who was frightened and with her family lying dead around her. Hind Hall. It should be called Hind Hall forever. And at the top of Columbia University who are trying to bolster the Gestapo to come in and beat anybody up, who wants to stand up for the love of our brothers and sisters and for truth, truth and love, truth and love. Those are the important things, not power and wealth and US hegemony. It's, I don't know. But yeah, we carry Hind in our hearts forever. And all the others, all the others, all the others. I woke to a terrible dream the other day. I woke up and it was a horrible image, and it was of a Palestinian man, identifiable because he was wearing a keffiyeh, and he has a plastic bag in each hand that's full of something or other. And he says, "I'm sorry I'm late. I had to pick up the kids," you know? And so you have your little weep, and then you dry your eyes, and you get on with being calm as you can. I've listened to some of my sisters, you know, who are constantly telling me this when I watched them doing interviews with Frank Barrett or somebody, Diane Bhutto, you know, or Nora Erakat, or Susi Abul Hawa, you know. I listen to these women and they give me strength because they speak in a level way. And you know that their hearts are breaking. So I have to listen to them and go, I have to stop weeping and try and stay a little bit level and calm. Maybe I can't, because maybe if I did stay level and calm, I'd never write any songs. You know, because my work is by and large kind of, I'm working on a new album now, based upon the new song that I did some of in that show called The Bar. And I'm enjoying it, but because it takes me on another artistic journey. It allows me to be part of theatre, which is what I've needed ever since I was that 3-year-old doing somersaults in front of any man that ever came to the house, because my dad was dead. And I didn't have anyone to do somersaults for. So I'm at least, I sort of know now that I'm still kind of doing somersaults, but it's to express, you know, the pain of loss from the Second World War. I mean, interestingly enough, that sort of, when I left Pink Floyd, a lot of it was about the fact that I made the final cut. That was the last record I made on my own, against the wishes of anybody else who was in the band, but particularly David, obviously, because he just doesn't agree with any of the politics of any of it. And I've been carrying on, and I'm very happy about that. And I've got nothing against him doing what he wants to, but it's completely different. It's nothing to do with the work that we did when I was in the band. I don't know, I'm rambling now.
No,
again.
not at all.
I do tend to ramble.
I wanted to mention that, you know, the interview we had, it left me, and I just think about it a lot. To your credit, when you shared that story with me about your father, who was a pacifist until it was time to fight, and it was on principle grounds. And I think about that a lot, because that gives me strength, if I can say, because, you know, it's a bit of a confession. I tend to try and be as accommodating as possible in my own life. But there's just some times where you have to contest. The injustices are so horrid that I have to stop being so accommodating and be more assertive and more confrontational in a principled manner. But I think of your father's story just because it's not natural to me to be that way, but I have to do it. I have to do it if I'm going to live a righteous life.
The Christian evangelicals in the United States have got this, they've now got this supremacist idea that Jesus is going to come back and they're going to win.
Yes.
They're going to live in heaven forever, while all the Jews and the Muslims and the agnostics and the atheists and the Hindus and the Confucians are all going to burn in hell
Yes.
forever in everlasting agony.
Yes.
Whoa! Wow! What a very Christian thing to think.
Yes, no, it's a point so well taken, and I have to remind myself, and I like what you say about Noor and the others too, because when I think of what they're doing, it's love. It's real, like it's love for humanity. So I just want to thank you so much again, Roger, for this most engaging discussion. I will definitely, when the opportunity is there, I will come see you again. We'll do another.